Today I want to talk about the problems that we have in the process of commercialisation, which starts at a certain point, which is ideation, and finishes at another certain point, which is exit. Exit doesn't mean to say you sell, but chances are the people who've invested in your project do want to sell. So what I want to focus on is not so much the process, but the roadblocks that you're going to hit along the way. And then step by step, I'm going to have another 6 or so little mini suggestions to help you identify if that is where you're stuck. If you are, I'll also show you how to get out of it. And I've got entire courses on these 6 roadblocks, but today is only really to show you, to help identify where you are, so if you are stuck, what you need to do. Okay? So you stay with me, we'll go through those. Now first I want to give you the 6 roadblocks as they are. The first is modelling, commercial modelling. You've got an idea, but you have to put a model around it, and I'm going to explain that a little bit more. The second one is ownership and protection. That's where people rush out to get a patent, but in fact, patent might not be the best thing for you, certainly if you're limited with funds. Third is funding, and that's where everyone thinks that's their first roadblock they've hit. So if funding is where you think you are, you've got to look backwards and see if it's any of the other two. The next one is transition, because once you've done your funding, you're no longer in R&D and you've got to now run it as a business. So even though it's baby steps, it's a completely different team sometimes, and you've certainly got to relinquish what you've been doing, because otherwise what happens is you've got a bit of money and somebody says to you, your widget is great, but it has a left-handed handle and it needs a right-handed handle. You run back into R&D and you circle back into where you're comfortable, and you'll keep doing iterations of the product before you progress it through, and you'll run out of funds in R&D, and that can't happen. So transitioning is very important, to be able to give it over to someone and say, okay, that's it. I no longer have hands-on with a product, or if I am, it's as a role model or as a head of the technical advisory panel, but not driving the project, because the product and the project are two separate things. The one after that is scaling, and this is where most American companies talk about we're startups. A startup for them is where you're doing $1 million a month and you now want to scale to $20 million a month. How do you do that? Well, there's a technique for it, and it doesn't involve the skill set you've got from inventing or the skill set you've got from kickstarting your project. It's completely different. It needs a lot of things, including money, resources, other resources other than money. It needs contacts, it needs administration, a completely different set of administration, because you've got to have somebody who's really adept at doing fast starts and high speed starts and scaling. And then final step, after scaling, you have the trade sale or exit. Now it might be a trade sale, might be a license, might be a franchising, sell it, grow it out model. You might decide I might need 50 stores in 50 years, and this is how I'm going to grow it out. That'll keep you the most equity, but it's the hardest to, and you'll probably be broke for the next 10 years in terms of cash on you, even though you'd have an asset building. And there's lots of other little ways, but IPO is another one, good one if the project's a big one. We show you how to do that, how to exit your shareholders, and sometimes yourself if you wanted to, without necessarily having a major tax event. So, and that's really for your accountants to tell you all about, but we'll show you what to ask them. Okay, so that's your 6 roadblocks as you go through. And what I want to do now in this series, this week's series, is talk about those roadblocks in a little piece by piece. So stay with me and we'll see what we can do.